Hi everybody, today I wanted to talk about something that we refer to as action on a bass. And action on a bass is not like Arnold yelling, get to the chopper. It's actually what action is on a bass, or on a guitar for that matter, really refers to the feel of the bass and basically the height of the strings from the frets and how much curve the neck has in it, because the neck needs to have a little bit of curve because the string has sort of an elliptical orbit and you don't want it rattling against the frets. If the neck is too straight, you're going to get some rattles. So when people ask, what's low action, what's high action, what's medium action, there's a lot of answers to that. If you look up the specs on the website for a Fender jazz bass, you'll get some specifications there that tell you it's 70 millimeters or 30 of an inch from the, I think, 17th fret, top of the fret to the bottom of the string, and that's all good. I find that pretty good action. The standard setup, maybe a little bit high for me, and what it is, it depends what you're doing. When I played really long sets, like 3-hour sets, 2 sets a night with a 5-minute break, I found that my hands got really tired. So I used to always ask my guitar techs for a low action, and that's all well and good, because at the time we were kind of playing some pretty fast sort of stuff, and I would always be playing back here over this bridge pickup. The strings are a bit tighter, so you can go a little faster there than you can here where they're a bit looser. These days I find that I've changed a little bit, and the music's changed, and I like to play probably over this pickup on a jazz, and I'm going for a rounder sound with a little bit of chime on the top. So my standard action setup is 0.010 inches at about the 7th or 8th fret if I use the string as a straight edge. There's a little gap there, and something like a couple of 30 seconds between the last fret and the bottom of the G string, and about 30 seconds from the bottom of the last fret to the bottom side of the E string, and the other 2 strings here will be somewhere in between those two, so about 5/64 I think, and that for me gives me a consistent feel. I don't have to press too hard to fret the note. Now, I don't have to struggle with it, but I still get a nice range of sort of dynamic range. Now, somebody like Mark King, the other thing about action too, and the feel, is string gauge. So the thicker your strings, that generally feel stiffer. It depends on the construction of the string too. There could be round core, hex core. But generally, I go for about 40 to 100 on string gauge. I find that's a nice all-round gauge. I may switch to a 45 to 105 sometimes, a little bit thicker. It's still got a nice feel. Somebody like Mark King uses 30 to 90, so those strings are really kind of a bit floppy because they're so thin. And he gets some fret rattle, but that's sort of become part of that sound that he has. I don't mind if I'm slapping, and I do get a little fret rattle, but when I'm playing sort of straight lines, I don't like it to rattle very much at all. So you have to find the balance between how hard you pluck here and what what you're expecting out of the sound. If you pluck really hard with your right hand or your left hand, if you're playing the other way around left-handed, you're going to need an action a little bit higher. If you're really like, say, a Jeff Berlin, some of you probably don't know who that is, young people in particular, but you know, he uses that bridge pickup a lot. He plays back here. He plays really fast, and he's got a very light touch. And with a very light touch, you can get away with that. Now, if I tried to play his bass, I would probably struggle to play that light, so it doesn't fret rattle a lot. The other important thing is that you keep in mind every different style of music is going to have different requirements. So I like to have that. So if I hit the string a little harder there, I'm going to get that little raspy sound. If I have it too high, it won't do that. If I have it too low, it'll do that more often than not. So you got to find the happy medium for you. But to give you an idea, how do I do this? There's a few tools that I use, and one of them is a little metal ruler, which is marked out in millimeters and also in inches, and it goes down to the markings 30 seconds and 60/4. So if I'm putting that, and what I normally do is use a capo. So I take that nut out of the equation by putting it on the first fret, and I'll measure underneath the string to the fret, and I can see 2 30 seconds and 3 30 seconds. So that way I know that I'm getting consistent measurement here, and the other two are halfway in between. And while I've got the capo on and the bass is in tune, I have these feeler gauges. These are the ones that mechanics used to really use to adjust points, but a lot of you won't know what points are either in a car. And I'll just put my glasses on so I can see this. 0.010, 0.25, so a quarter of a millimeter is what I'm reading here. And if I now have that on the first fret, I'll fret there with the last fret, 7th or 8th fret here, that should slip underneath and just barely touch the string without moving it. And then I know that my setup is the way I like it. And I do that generally across all my basses, and I get a very consistent feel. So if I switch instruments, I'll have a consistent feel across all my instruments. The reason for switching instruments, sometimes you just want a different sound. These days I play a lot of different styles of music. Sometimes I like a P bass with flat wounds, the jazz bass with some really bright stainless steel strings, so I get that nice snap out of it, that sort of thing, and anywhere in between. So it's really important to understand that, and if you're buying a bass and if you're really serious about it, nobody at the store is going to mind if you say, can you lower the action a little bit, I want to try it. Give it a go. It's well worth it. So that's what we mean when we talk about the action on a bass. It's how it feels, and how it feels is dependent on how high the strings are. So for my basses, it's a very tiny bit of bow in the neck to allow the strings to speak. Reasonably low string height measured here at the last fret, and then everything in the middle will feel comfortable for me. Some people will play this bass and say, it's too low, I can't, they want to dig in more, they can't get the sound that they're after. Others, I don't think anybody's ever complained that this is too high. I think it's set up on quite on the low side still. I've had them lower in the past, but again, you kind of, because you can't pluck too hard, you have to control how hard you pluck. You lose the dynamic range, which means you can play soft to loud, but if it's a little bit high, you can go that little bit louder. You can get that little bit more aggressive. Again, citing Jeff Berlin, he says, well, just turn your amp up, play softer, and then when you need to, just dig in a little bit more. You got to be quite controlled to play that way. For the sort of stuff I do, I don't find that entirely practical. I think the action on this is low enough for me to be comfortable, to have the articulation I need, to have the dynamic range that I need, and it works for me. The thing is, you have to find what works for you, which means a little bit of twiddling. So if you needed a little bit more bow in the neck, you adjust that via the truss rod and the string height with an Allen key via the bridge saddles. And it's the balance of the curvature in the neck and the height of the strings at that point that's going to give you the action that you like. What we should probably, I've said this before, is to actually go through a video when I restring a bass and I run through every step that I do along the way to set it up the way that I want it. So it's got to be done in a particular order. You've got to imagine, if you've got your string set quite high, when you fret the note, you're stretching the string further to get to the fret. So that may cause it at that note to play a little bit sharper than it would if the string was lower. And that's the back and forth motion of the saddle here allows you to adjust for that. So you would use a tuner and make sure that at the octave and at the open string the notes are in tune. And sometimes it's a little bit of a compromise with some basses, but most modern basses will play very in tune if you set them up properly. It depends how hard you press the string into the neck, all that sort of thing. So we should probably talk about that at the next video, and I'll show you how I do my setup that works for me, and you can find the setup and a string gauge that works for you. Take the measurements, write them down, and then go through the same process that I do, and you'll always get a consistent fill. So until next time, keep playing, keep having a great time, keep making music, and be well. Talk soon.